Can I ask you something? Have you ever caught yourself saying, I'm just not ready yet? Maybe you wanted to leave a job, start a business, end a relationship, maybe, I don't know, move somewhere new, or do something that you've always wanted to do, or at least that you've wanted to do for years. And you keep telling yourself, I just need a little bit more time. But what if you're not actually waiting to feel ready? You are maybe waiting until you no longer have to trust yourself. You're waiting for outside external proof instead of just like going with your gut and admitting or acknowledging what you actually know to be true. Because here's something I've been thinking about lately with this idea of ready. Sometimes we do genuinely need more time. And that's okay, because there are times when we need to learn a new skill. We do need more knowledge. Maybe we need to locate or identify certain resources that we don't have yet. So there are those times. And also, there are times when we already know. We're just, I don't know, hoping that someone else, right? Someone in our circle or someone outside of ourselves will tell us that we're right before we have to believe ourselves. And today, I want to tell you about the time when I decided to go part-time in my muggle or corporate or responsible, whichever one of those fits, so that you feel resonates better. My job, the job I had back then. After 6 years of working as an investigator, I was an insurance investigator in the work comp field. And when I made that decision, I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't have like the perfect 5-year plan. I didn't even have a specific plan at all. And as I have looked back, I don't think the biggest change was that my work schedule changed and that I would work less hours, at least for someone else. I think it was one of the most significant times where I truly believed myself before life or circumstances gave me proof that I should. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Rebel Manifestors Podcast, where we flip the script on manifestation by focusing on embodying the badass chingona already inside you. If you're done playing small and are ready to become the main character of your own damn life, estás en el lugar correcto. You're in the right place. This isn't about waiting for the universe to hand you a better life. It's about becoming the mujer living it. Through stories, journaling, music, visioning, mindset, and bold action, we'll rewrite the beliefs that have kept you stuck and step into the life that's been waiting for you all along. Your future self doesn't wait for permission. So vamos, let's fucking go. Welcome back, Rebels. And if this is your first time finding the Rebel Manifestors Podcast, welcome. I'm excited to have you all here. This episode is all about the concept that ready is a lie, and the day or the time that I decided to believe myself. And I'm going to, well, let me tell you that I actually, when I started planning this episode, and I don't know, diving into or really kind of looking at my experiences with I'm not ready or being ready, I actually was going to really focus on the details of me choosing to go part-time in my job and thought that was really going to be the focus. And then I discovered that it wasn't, as I really got into outlining and preparing for this episode. So things happened in real time, right? Just because I have a story to tell, it's like, well, let me evolve it this way, or let me focus on it this way. So just so you know, it started out one way and now it's ending up where this is. I'm still going to fill you in, give you some information because the context is important about when I did leave or choose to go part-time. I didn't leave. This isn't the time I left. This is when I chose to go from part-time to full-time. So let's go. Diving in to the concept or the idea of ready, because being ready sounds responsible, doesn't it? It's like, okay, I'm not being rash. I'm not going off half-cocked, right? We say I'm not ready, and like I said earlier, sometimes that is very true and valid, and then sometimes we're just buying time. We're going through the process of letting ourselves off the hook for a while, right? For a little bit. We're buying that time where we don't have to commit or fully lean into and believe what we want is possible for us. And so ready in those instances sounds responsible. It sounds like a mature decision to make, and it sounds logical. And that version of ready, when we're buying more time, oftentimes comes from fear. And now stick with me for a second here, because think of fear as a character, right? Like as actual physical character. And think of that character as getting like those smart looking reading glasses, right? Looking very educated, or whatever the word, that evokes. So putting on some really smart looking reading glasses, getting a clipboard and saying, yes, this is the smart decision. This is responsible, and I'm going to call it being responsible and being and saying I need more time. And what does that that makes me giggle, because then I can see how the fear is dressing up, right? So the fear that we have is disguising itself, dressing up as responsible, mature. Yes, all those things: mature, responsible, logical. So I don't know. Let me know where you're watching or listening to this. Is that something that you can do? Does that come easily to, or does that help? Maybe that's even a better way. Does it help to see ready or fear disguised as ready as being this character in dress up, if you will? So we're going to talk about, I am all over the place because I have like the ideas that I had and then what I narrowed it down to. So bear with me. You get to be in this conversation in real time with me. So leaning into ready. Sometimes we do, we say we need more time, and then we do things, right, to really support that idea, that belief. Maybe we do some more research. We start trying to identify all the things we don't yet know or that we need to know. And if you're a person who enjoys or who just makes and has spreadsheets, maybe it's creating another spreadsheet of information to track, or adding another page or tab to a spreadsheet that you've already created and have been evaluating and reviewing and evaluating all the things. And sometimes maybe you go watch a YouTube video, right? I need to understand this more. I need to find someone else's perspective. And there might also be times where you tell someone, whether it's family, close friends, a mentor, coworker, whoever that might be, that you tend to bounce ideas off of, or that you choose to. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not dissing it, because I have done that. I have been that person. There are probably still circumstances where I would default to that, right? So it's not a bad thing. It's simply about awareness, because I really was that person. And I'm going to share how that played out and how that has changed with you as we go through this episode. And since this did start, the focus was going to be that I was going to share mostly about the kind of what it was, what was involved in the time when I did choose to go part-time with my job. So I was an investigator, insurance investigator, and kind of the synopsis, the Cliff Notes, whatever version of this is I had moved back to California, Los Angeles, to be closer to family back in 2014. And when I did, I had a very specific job that I wanted to find. It is what I had been doing before I had left LA 12 years prior. And it was, this job as an investigator. I listed out all the things that I wanted, insurance and work descriptions, that type of thing. And I then only applied to jobs that fit that criteria. Even though other people were saying, just get whatever job you can and you can get a different job, or you can move jobs. And as I'm saying this out loud right now, that actually is another circumstance, another instance where I chose to trust myself. Instead of doing what other people told me or recommended, just get any job you can, and then you can sort it out. I waited. I only applied to jobs that fit what I wanted. And I only got one, I shouldn't say I only got, it is, but the first callback I got for an interview that fit this criteria, I went to that interview and that is the job I got. And it was exactly what I wanted. I had the income that I wanted and what would be involved in doing that work, because it was a lot of field work. I drove out and actually interviewed either the person who got injured. It was a work comp. I don't know if I said that, insurance, but it was work comp. And so I interviewed the employees who'd gotten hurt. I interviewed their supervisors, coworkers to get an idea, picture of what happened. And so I would drive to the employers' locations, sometimes to the employees' homes. And so I was everywhere in Southern California. I was doing a lot of driving, coming back and moving back home. That was really good for me. I was kind of getting familiar with the area again, finding new areas depending on where I was sent. I was interacting with and meeting people of so many different skill levels and job positions. And I was getting familiar and learning about so many different types of work and jobs and employment, just, how people worked and jobs that are out there that I didn't know before. And I was having fun. And so I got to drive all over the place. There was variety because it was never the same thing. I did not want to work in an office at a desk all day. So it was remote in that I didn't have to go to an office. I did have obviously to be at in-person appointments. So there was that. I worked independently. I didn't work with anyone else. We, all of us investigators went to do our interviews on our own unless we were training with someone else or training someone else. And it shifted when I first started where there was a person who made our schedules, and then it moved to us making our own schedules. So that even gave me more independence. I was able to create the work day that I wanted. And slowly, it wasn't a specific instance, but things started to change. The traffic and all the driving started to get weary or tiring. Depending on how far I had to drive, it was a long drive, be there for a short time, and then come back. And so it didn't happen in an instant, and it didn't happen overnight. And the idea of going part-time developed. And the way that developed is during the pandemic, right? Because that changed. When the pandemic hit, then we all of us, as many jobs and industries, went fully remote. So I was no longer going out to in-person interviews. I wasn't driving all over the place. I got so much time back. And so the decision, I'm going to tie this together, but I do want to point out that the decision, kind of as the focus or to keep in mind, the decision to go part-time came long before I knew what was next, right? So from going to being excited about driving everywhere, meeting new people, doing all the things, which was exactly what I had wanted to manifest. Then developing, okay, this is changing. I'm not loving it so much. I never got to the point where I said I hated it, right? Where I was like, hated it. This is so crushing. That was not me. So the decision, I think, actually I know, landed in my body first. Now, did I acknowledge it or was I aware of that? No, I was not. And maybe there's instances where you can relate to that. Like, okay, maybe if I look back, I had this feeling, I had this knowledge, and I didn't acknowledge it. I didn't say, yes, this is exactly what happened. And so that was part of the process. Now, the actual part, this is key about deciding to go part-time, is I knew at some point there would be that shift of having to go back to in-person statements, right? The pandemic, the shutdown, all those things was not going to last forever. I knew that. So I did make the decision very intentionally that I did not want to go back to field work. It's like going back and doing field work and driving and all the things was my hard no. That's like, nope, I'm not going to do that. And that's kind of the connection to where my body, it's like, yes, acknowledge that, said, yes, this is the right decision. Going back to field work is a no. I didn't know what it would look like. Would I be able to do different types of work to fill in the gaps, right? Would I have to change positions? Would I even be able to continue working there? So I didn't dwell on them, but I knew that there would be a point. And then it did get to the point where I got an email from my employer, and you can see the subject line, right? And a little bit of the preview text on a lot of emails. And so I saw the email come through, and I forget the wording, but it was something about hours and in-person type things. And I'm like, oh man, they're going to ask me to go back. They're going to say I need to go back to field work. And really, because it was at the point where really there wasn't enough remote work to be working full time. And so what I did, this is a big shift. What I did was to say, I'm not going to open this email right now. It was afternoon time, maybe, close to the end of the workday. I'm not going to open this email right now. I'm going to wait till tomorrow so that I wouldn't read it and I wouldn't be in this reactive energy, because my nervous system, my thought process was triggered. It's like, oh man, I know what that is. This is the email about that, going back. And to change my regular pattern, my regular way of doing things, I decided I'm going to wait until tomorrow. And then through the course of the evening and before I opened up the email, the next morning, I had definitely agreed with myself, no field work. And then the thought process I had was, I'm going to ask them if I can go part-time. I'm going to ask them if this is possible or what the options are, but I will offer to continue working on a part-time level. And yes, that scared the shit out of me, because I was like, okay, what am I going to do? I had started learning about business and getting into doing like vision board things. And so, but it wasn't like fully up and going. I was leaning into and learning about and getting experience in having a business, my own business, but I wasn't, raking in the cash. I wasn't even bringing in consistent income at that point. It was very spotty, and it was nowhere near where I would be able to replace what I was giving up. But I also had shifted things during the pandemic. It's like, I'm not driving as much. I don't have as much expense that way. So things, it was like, that was what I decided. And then when I opened up the email in the morning, they actually said, we do need there isn't enough work for full-time remote in the sense of not doing in-person interviews. Do you want to go back to doing in-person interviews and field work, or you can go part-time. So even though I had not opened the email the night before, I had come to the decision that I would ask if that was possible. And there it was in the email saying that was a possibility. And so that is what I chose. And I told you how I did something different. So this was the interrupt of my old pattern. And let's see. So what I would typically do before in the past when I wanted something, and I'll keep it to this example to keep it consistent. Let's say when I did make this decision of no field work, in the past I would have run that by somebody. I would have said, "What do you think? This is what I'm thinking. I've decided I'm not going to go back into doing field work." And I would be looking for agreement, validation, and I wouldn't really be looking for advice, but I would say that I was, or I'd say, "What do you think about this?" And most often, I obviously knew what I wanted because I was bringing it to them, but I was looking for that external reassurance, validation, and fucking permission from someone else to do what I wanted. And when they resisted in whatever way, saying it wasn't a good idea, they didn't think it would be a good move, they didn't understand it, why would I want to do something like that? Then what I would do is really launch into explaining it, defending it, justifying it, all these things, even arguing with them and arguing with them about why I thought it was a good idea. And most times, following this pattern in my past with that resistance, I also allowed myself to talk myself out of it and not go do the things like, "Oh, well, they don't get it, so they don't think it's a good idea, so maybe I should wait." Again, that fear disguised as responsibility, as logical, right? So that was my pattern before. I'd get so mad and frustrated and whatever, go through to whatever degree of justifying and getting mad, and depending on who I was talking to. And I wasn't really, as I looked back, and as I have looked back, I wasn't asking for perspective or advice. I was asking people to make me feel safe enough to trust myself. And again, allowing that, giving that away, asking for other people to tell me it was okay to do what I wanted. And that brings me to the difference. I already talked about earlier how sometimes we do need more time. So this is a tie-in, a little bit of an expansion of that, is that there is a distinction. There is a definite difference between perspective and permission. So in those instances where we need more time because we need to learn a skill, develop a skill, find the resources, perspective asks, what am I missing? And that's when you answer with, okay, I need this resource. I need to learn about this. I need to learn this skill. I need to get better at this. So perspective invites you to say, what is missing? There's nothing about permission, because permission asks, is it okay? Is it okay for me to do this in your eyes, from your expectations, from what you think is best for me? And again, this isn't a fault thing, because that's what we're taught. In school, we need to ask for permission to go to school. We raise our hand. Our parents need to give us permission to go play with our friends. So this is something that we're taught early, but then we're not taught to move past that. So even when we're grown and we are capable of making decisions, that is not nurtured. That is not saying, okay, now you're at a point where you can actually trust yourself. You don't need external permission. We get stuck in that, and it's so hard. It's so natural to us because we learned it from so young, and it kept getting reinforced, that we don't know it's the natural operating system that is running our decision-making process a lot of the times. And so that is something I do want to point out. Notice that difference between perspective and permission. Because advice and feedback, there is definitely a place and a time for that. I'm not saying don't ever ask for it, but don't let that be the thing that you're waiting on to, for other people to give you the permission, to agree with you, to give you advice that you actually agree with. And community matters. We do need to be in and part of a community. That doesn't mean that they make the decisions for us. And wisdom, we all have it to some level. And it's wonderful to learn from other people's wisdom. Then we also, in turn, at points in our life, share our wisdom with others. But again, wisdom is not permission, right? It's like, oh, let me learn from you. Let me ask you some questions about what you know about this. Do you know about this? Not, do you think it's a good idea? So do you see the difference in even the types of questions when we do bring it to other people? What do you know about this versus do you think I should do it? Or what can you tell me about this process versus can I do this process? I want you to agree with me that I can do it. So hopefully that distinction is pointed out. And yeah, don't let seeking permission be the thing that leads the thing that goes, because the decision has likely already been made in your heart and in your body if you take the time to check in with it and look at what comes up. Do you tense up? Like that's why I waited to open the email. I felt very tense, like this knot in my stomach, because I knew it was about going back to full-time, to staying full-time, being able to keep a full-time position by going back out in the field. And I very definitely felt that knot. And so I felt that sensation. I'm like, I'm not going to open it right now and react from this energy. I'm going to let myself process it, and I'm going to think about how I want to respond to this email instead of, oh man, they've asked me to do it, so I guess I'll have to say yes. Like saying like that at the beginning, like saying yes when I really don't want to. I would have likely said yes and then been resentful and then had to go through the whole process of being dissatisfied with going back to field work and then finding a way to navigate back to where I had been, where I was already there, basically at part-time. I really was already there because, that's why I was getting the emails, because we don't have enough work to justify this as in a full-time capacity and to keep paying you as a full-time employee when you're really working pretty close to part-time. So that is the nutshell. That is the nutshell. There's lots more details and things, but I did want to share where kind of like that arc that I manifested the exact job I wanted. I loved it. It was the right thing for me. I started changing and developing interests, and things started shifting where it wasn't as much fun. I got to experience what it was like to not be in the field, and then realizing that was a hard no for me. And what I did different into breaking my pattern was waiting to open that email and respond in a different way instead of reacting from a anxious or triggered or unsettled way first. So now, what I've developed, what I've kind of labeled, I don't want it to be labeled, what has come up for me is this type of thinking is that trusting myself led to, I guess I don't know, it either led or came from, it was very closely tied to me believing that what I want is possible. So I went part-time, not knowing, like I said, I didn't have a plan, but I believed enough that I would be able to make it. I would be able to supplement that income, replace that income. I was obviously very, very, doing well getting by with less than full-time pay as work dwindled. So I believed it. And that's why I went ahead and did that. And so that's what I call the rock star mindset. And if you've been around the Rebel Manifestors, you know that I talk about and incorporate music. Every episode now has a track that I'll give you at the end. And I think about musicians. I think about their process. And not in the fact that I want to be a musician, because I don't. And not because I think you should be a musician and that's what I want to help you do. That's not it at all. But the mindset, the rock star mindset, the way I see it is that it comes from listening to the stories of all the bands that I like and reading their biographies and seeing the biography videos. They believed that they could be a killer rock band, that they could be a rock star when probably everyone else or most of the people around them didn't. What do you mean you can't be a rock star? Who the hell do you think you are? And all the challenges and difficulties that they shared along the way, but they kept going. They kept going and they believed and they showed up as the rock star, right? So because before they ever played to a sold out stadium, before they ever sold concert tickets, before they ever had the platinum albums, they wrote the songs. They learned how to play the instruments. They practiced in garage bands. They acted as if they were playing for stadiums when they were playing in a neighborhood bar, right? So they had that belief, and over time they embodied it and developed it and leaned into the identity so that when they got there, it was like, oh yes, of course this is happening because I did all these things in the past and I was stuck with it when everyone else said I was delusional, when everyone else said it would never be possible. And how many of the rock bands or musicians that you like, have you heard stories about that, right? Most people don't say, hey, I want my kid to be a rock star. There might be some people that do. So, it's not one thing always. But as a whole, that tended to be kind of that. So that's where I came up with this, this philosophy of the rock star mindset and believing that what you want is possible, believing there is more than what you currently have, and that you are able and worthy and capable of going after and having the things that you want, the experiences that you want, all that. So tying it into just this rock star musician type of comparison, the audience can't believe in a song the musician never believed enough to write and then play for people. If it stayed in their head entirely, always, and they never shared it, there couldn't be a killer ballad or a power anthem or, like the Queen's, We Will Rock You. If that had stayed in Freddie Mercury's head, it never would have inspired everyone and become a theme song and become a cult or an iconic song, a cult classic, iconic song, if it stayed in his brain without him ever sharing that and developing that. And so that can go for your dreams as well, and you becoming the person who is living those experiences. And that's the identity. You need to see yourself as the person living that life and start acting like that person, making decisions like that person. So the manifesting me moment, these are components that I include now in every episode. And so this is the manifesting me moment, because manifesting me, if you're not familiar with that is also something that I talk about a lot. Manifesting me is becoming the person living that life. That's my process and philosophy. I'm manifesting me. I'm not necessarily focused on the thing, but I know what I want, and I need to manifest the version of me experiencing it, living it, attracting it. So here's a question for you. If you like to journal, this is a great journal prompt. I have a couple for you in this episode. And if you don't like to journal, you can talk it out. You can just think about it, just see what comes to mind for you. And the questions are, it's a twofold one. Where in your life do you already know the answer? If it's a specific thing or just something that you can look back on, where in your life do you already know the answer? But keep calling it confusion, because trusting yourself feels scarier than waiting. Trusting yourself feels scary, especially when you're not used to doing it and you need to start somewhere to do things differently. So all together so that it makes sense. Where in your life do you already know the answer, but keep calling it confusion because trusting yourself feels scarier than waiting? And then, following up to that, what would one decision look like if you believed yourself first? And I want you to notice, I said believed yourself, not believed in yourself. Believe yourself, your inner self, your higher self, your intuition, your gut, whatever lands for you. What would one decision look like if you believed yourself first? And so the rebel reflection is a follow-up to that. And it's another component that I have in every episode now. And so this week's rebel reflection is pretty simple. It really ties into what I just asked you. What do I already know, but keep calling confusion because I'm afraid to trust myself? So it's a succinct version. You can kind of play with that however you like. And the invitation, though, with the reflection part is don't rush to an answer. Our brain also wants information like in the moment, right when we ask for it. It might take a while because you're not used to maybe asking yourself these types of questions and noticing what the answer is. So it might not come right in this moment. Maybe you have a concept, maybe you have an idea, jot down a word, maybe a couple bullet points, but let it sit with you. Kind of, think about it over the week or over a few days and see what does come up. And it might be uncomfortable and you might be like, is this right? But asking the question is making the invitation for the information to come to you. And so as you sit with it, as you see what comes up, also let the woman that you're becoming answer instead of the woman who's been trying to stay safe. So another way of saying that is let the future version of you answer that question instead of the current or past you. So that's where I broke that pattern, right? Of looking to other people, of answering in a reactive state. And so choosing to not open the email was how I let the future version of me handle the situation. Because I would have typically been pissed off and say, oh, I have to go back to field work, even though I don't want to. But I changed. And so then another component is the rebel challenge. And so this week, I want you to choose one decision that you've been quietly carrying or considering or pondering or even putting off, right? So one decision, and it doesn't have to blow up your whole life. And so think of that. Think of the decision. And then before asking someone else what they think or asking for their feedback or their opinion, write down what you already know when it comes to that decision. Do you feel it in your body? Is it something that you know you would be upset if someone disagreed with you, but that you would allow that to be the thing that you allow to talk yourself out of it, like I did? Write down what you know. And this isn't judgment, but awareness and acknowledging the pattern that we need to disrupt is key. It's so important, and it might not feel comfortable. So you start with a decision that you've been putting off or not doing, and ask yourself or write down what you already know, and then take one small action. Like I said, it doesn't have to be huge or life-changing or shattering, but one small action that honors that knowing. Not because it's certain, not because the outcome is certain, but because you're becoming someone who believes herself. And again, believes yourself, not believes in yourself, but believes your inner knowing. And that's a huge distinction. So sit with that and see how that resonates with you. There's a lot coming at you at this episode. It might be one you can come back to when there are multiple, future decisions that you make, so that you kind of sit with this information again. And the Rebel track that I talked about, it's a song that I will give you. Most of the songs that are the Rebel tracks will be coming from my Manifesting Songs playlist, but not all of them. And the Manifesting Songs playlist, I'll get to in a second. It's available for everybody. But the track is I Won't Back Down by Tom Petty. And before, you may like the song, you may not, and you don't have to like the song. Because actually this was not one of my favorite songs. This is not one I would have said was like, oh yeah, it's my favorite song. But the message is important. And so the conversation is it's not like a power anthem, like a motivating type song. And that's not why I'm inviting you to listen to it. I'm not inviting you to listen to it because it's so incredibly motivating, but because it will help you reflect. So when you finish this episode, and then if you're going to journal or just kind of talk it out, if you like to, you can make a video just for yourself, like talking out this process, talking out your answers. You have to share it anywhere. But if you're a verbal processor, that is a way of doing that. So before you journal, before you make the phone call, whatever your decision is, right? It could be sending an email. It could be making a phone call. It could be journaling out the answer to the questions above. So before you do that, listen to the song and see what feelings come up. See what feelings it helps you connect with. And again, it's not so that Tom Petty or his lyrics can give you permission. It's for you to connect with the music and the emotions and then the things, the thoughts, the questions, the information that brings up. And so that is the Rebel track, the Rebel challenge, the Manifesting Me moment. You remember, this is what I did write this down here, looking at my notes. Listening to it and hearing the music and maybe the lyrics, it helps you remember and possibly even start to connect with, for the very first time, the version of you who's already decided. And I'm not telling you it's a yes or a no, but making the actual decision from what you know and what you feel in your body. And that's not abandoning the future you. It's changing. It's changing the way that you do things. And it's actually not abandoning yourself anymore, if that makes sense. So that's what I have for you. And if you want to hear the songs, I talked about my Manifesting Songs playlist. It is free and available to everyone. Look for the link to get it somewhere around where you're watching or listening to this. And it contains songs that I feel help you believe that anything is possible. And that looks different ways. The lyrics have, just obviously it's a pretty packed playlist. I think it's close to 3 hours long. I don't do small playlists. And maybe it will inspire you to create your own playlist. So check it out, get it. It's free for everyone. And if this conversation, if, connecting with music, anything from this episode resonated with you, like developing that rock star mindset, all the things, I think the Manifesting Songs playlist is a great place to start. And you can listen to it anytime, while you're driving, while you're walking, while you're doing laundry, while you're getting ready in the morning. And so I will refer to this throughout, in my podcast episodes. I'll include a song and some type of exercise or activity that goes along with it. So before you go, remember that you believing you is more important than looking for validation, than looking for permission. It's that difference between perspective and permission. You are capable, and it's all about learning to trust and believe yourself. So I'm Patty Diaz, Rebel Manifestor. We don't wish for a better life here. We become the person living that life by learning to trust ourselves. I'll see you later, Rebels. Take care.